What's going on, Humanize family? We're here with a great friend, Pedro, um, and we're going to have a cultural, I don't know if it's cultural shifting, but a culturally relevant conversation. Um, and but first, before I even start there, I want y'all to know that y'all are lucky because this is an exclusive. Y'all thought the season was over. We thought the season was over, but because we love what we do so much, we brought y'all some more heat, some more conversation, some more engagement, and hopefully you'll enjoy it because I know we will. Yeah. So Emily, Pedro, let's go. What are we talking about today?
Pedro, this is what the third time we've had you on. Wait, no,
Nah,
fourth, third,
third. No, it's the third. It's the
third.
third time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Humanize regular guest. We love having you
Yep.
on. So Pedro Silva is the director of engagement at Unify, and his current work is really focused on bridging divides. Past work, he was a pastor here in a church here in Boulder, and a poet and a parent, and an amazing person to talk through it in general. So I want to give a shout out to, he is heading up Unify. How are we saying it? Unify Colorado Challenge. And that's something, if you go enter Instagram and in the bio, you can find a way to sign up for it. And Pedro, maybe you could let us know a little bit about that before we get into the topic of the day, which is talking about the Will Smith, Chris Rock slap from a couple weeks ago, which we intentionally delayed our conversation around that. So welcome, Pedro. Let's talk
Thanks
about
for
today.
thanks for having me up here. Yeah. So with the Unified Challenge for Colorado, basically, the whole point of it is to get Coloradans to get together to talk about the issues that we agree on and not the divisions that separate us. So the way I like to say it is defeat problems, not people. And so there's about
Mm,
12 issues that we're looking at: affordable housing, the opioid epidemic, recidivism, issues like that, responsible gun ownership, et cetera. And just inviting people from all walks of life, different political sides, different ethnicities and races, different locations, geographic locations, because that shapes how people view things as well. And
mhm,
bringing them in a one-to-one conversation, so you get paired with another Coloradan across those divides, and then talk about the issues itself, not through echo chambers or through media filters or whatever, but just talking one-to-one as people, with the idea that as they talk to one another, they'll start to see they have more in common and can focus more on solving the problems instead of trying to defeat each other. So that's the
thank
whole
you.
Unified Challenge for Colorado. And now when we started working on this, we didn't know there was going to be another divide between Will Smith and Chris Rock, and people who thought Will did the right thing and people who thought Chris handled it the right way. So now that might be another thing we might have to add
At number
on it.
13.
Yeah, yeah. What do you feel about this? And as Courtney and I were talking about it, he's saying, it's just a person getting smacked, right? So
Mhm,
in the grand scheme of things, why are we so fascinated with it? And then on the other side, it's of cultural significance in
mhm,
the context of America, and all of the things that we are divided on. I think that it's kind of a conversation that people, I think what it brings up from my perspective is, what does it say about me? Like, what comes up inside of myself as a witness to that? What are the thoughts that arise in my consciousness in terms of how I view it, which I think is an important aspect of this event, is that witnessing what it brings up for the person and
mhm,
using that awareness to shape yourself. You know, um,
mm,
we can't undo it, but we can do something with it positively.
mhm,
So
mhm.
that's kind of how I'm taking it. But I was
Interesting.
curious how, in my imagination, I figured we were gonna probably laugh a few times up here for
Yeah.
whatever reasons, just of being observers of the culture and shapers of the culture. So I was curious what your initial thoughts were when it first happened.
Courtney.
Okay. My initial thoughts was, damn. But this was also, man, they planned to do that. Like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think it was. I thought it was just something for like well, ratings and things of that nature. And so it was like, I don't know. Will Smith was laughing. Then he gets up after Jada look at him a little bit like, yo, you gonna let this man talk to me like that? And then he went up there and slapped him, And so I felt like it was when I saw it from that angle, I was like, oh, maybe Will was tired of being a nice guy and let people know, though, I'm from Philly, And so like I get it in like that too. And so it was just a lot of thoughts. But as a cultural thing, I saw, and you know what I do, Emily. I gotta go to Fox News.
Yeah.
I gotta go.
Oh God.
And Fox News had it. Well, I think that the police should have been called, and Will Smith should have been arrested, and all that. And so he did later on retire from not retire, but withdraw from the academy. And that is unfortunate because we already have at least representation there, and Will Smith was a big figure there. So for that to happen, it was unfortunate. But I think it's distracting. I would have thought that like, and who knows what else Will is dealing with, at his level, with his kids, with his wife, with his family, there are thoughts that she had an entanglement with some other dude before, and they were working through that, and now and they finally got to a place where they're good because you never know somebody else's marriage from the outside, And so I felt like it was way more than just a slap, and it's just unfortunate that it's getting so much attention and not good attention. Not like, hey, Will, we pray for you and we'll do this. It's like laughing at him and laughing at his pain, which the culture loves to do sometimes. And so that's why it's really unfortunate to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess for me, it's a little bit of like watching, in terms of Pedro, as you're saying, like the witness of what's happening, watching my biases at work, because I am like from the beginning, diehard Will Smith fan. And DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince was one of my first concerts. And so that was in 92. It's called The Greatest Rap Show Ever. And love that show. And so, so like even him getting booked to do Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was like, wow, he's really going somewhere. And now, obviously he's like a mega star. And so it was interesting as someone who just, loves Will Smith, and I don't particularly never have Chris Rock's humor. It's interesting to watch my confirmation bias at work, at how I'm like, how many different excuses can I come up for Will being okay, for Will being the one that's in the right in this situation, and it's kind of all over the place. And I'm just noticing how hard it is to kind of to truly step into that witness place and assess it from an objective standpoint, because I am so biased towards giving him the benefit of the doubt, which then makes me reflect just upon like, of course, because my work is mostly in the professional workplace. So like, how does that confirmation bias play out for white leaders assessing behavior of white employees or BIPOC employees, or, people who we are not, we don't have familiarity bias with. And so that's kind of what I've been toying around with, of like, can I really step into that more objective place? And I don't even think I can. And I'm noticing like all of society doing it too, like on a more I don't know if everyone is sitting at home contemplating their biases, but yeah, that's it. So there's like that piece. And then there's also, and I think kind of Courtney and I had a little bit of alignment on this, that it's like, kind of feels like a distraction. Like they're trying to figure out if Ukraine is a genocide, like there are really big things happening out there. And that this took over all of the news cycles is kind of like, gosh, like our culture, our mindset is I don't know.
Yeah. And that's what makes it so culturally significant. Thanks for your honesty too about that bias and stuff like that. But I think that that's what makes it culturally significant, because a person is an observer and a shaper of culture, is to look at what are our tendencies.
Yeah.
Where do we place our value lens and things like that. And the fact that this takes up so much of our awareness. Because I was thinking about it, there's a lot of people who've done a lot worse than
Yeah.
Will Smith did, and are still able to live in their careers and come back from it, and I'm sure he will too. But the fact that I know I can speak for myself, that like as a black man, like I have a long time, I don't kind of carry it or weigh it this way anymore, but I was always aware that I'm just one mistake away from people being like, I knew it. Like it doesn't matter like how much good you do in the world, or how much you can carry, or whatever the case may be, that generally speaking, whether it's true or not, a lot of us live with that little thing that's saying, if I make a mistake, people are going to remember the worst thing that they think I did. And that's going to be the thing that's in front of me for the rest of my, life or whatever, my livelihood and all of those things. And so I imagine that that's one of the things that Will is going through on one side, he was trying to maintain that image, brand, if you will. And now that it's been tarnished, it shows like how fragile all of those things are. And as a society, as we witness it, we're fascinated. So a lot of times we're fascinated with people's demise.
Right.
We're fascinated with watching people like fall from grace, and just like, wow, look at that person fall from grace. And especially if we haven't right. And if we haven't maximized our own potential, or aren't working towards maximizing our own potential, it almost makes us feel better to see somebody else fail.
Yeah.
And it's just like, wow, man, one of the greatest fell. Yeah. And we'll,
Yeah.
we don't say we're saying that, but some of us are,
Yeah.
because, and that's something to behold, and to look at ourselves as a culture and go like, these are the things we got to work on. Like, this brought up something, we got to work on these things. Let's take a gander. I can't believe I said gander. Take that word back. Delete that. Strike that from the record.
Yeah. No editing. Gander stays.
Yeah.
I was just gonna get you on that later. I was like, "Ooh, gander! You feeling fancy today, huh?"
No. It's from a. If it makes it any better, it's from a poem my mom used to do when I was a kid. She used to perform with music and stuff and do poems, and I got that word from one of her poems. And I used to be like, gander, and now I said it. Dang. Anyway, but yeah. So but yeah, that's something I think we need to witness, because a lot of times when these different events happen, we don't watch like where we move our attention, and it's like some of us probably grateful, like, thank God, man, Will Smith slapped Chris Rock, on a subconscious level, because now I had to pay attention to these other things that are going on in society that are really disturbing, and really, causing us to really take a good look at ourselves. We can just look at him and look at this situation. And then, so there's I think there's so much complexity to it. And right now we're focusing on the same things we always focus on, like who's right and who's wrong.
Yeah.
And then getting into the polarization instead of looking at ourselves and watching our own inner witness, which is something I think is important to do.
Yeah.
Exactly. I feel as though at times we're so quick to make something black and white when something is always nuanced. You know what I mean? Look at criminal justice. You see all these crimes, you see things going on, and you always look at, this happened, this was wrong, that person needs to go to jail, they were right. It's hardly ever that black and white, And so when we do it, like, we always want to be jury, executioner, judge, everything in one, And so with the case of Will Smith, I think is just something that is not known from Will, Not to be the the stirrer upper, if that's the word. You know, like he's not known. See, Chris Rock, you know, really don't. His brand is I don't care. You know, I say it. Like if if Dave Chappelle slapped Chris Rock, that would have been in line. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, okay. And it probably wouldn't have been that. This news cycle wouldn't have been that important. But because it's Will Smith, you know, who is one of, in my mind, one of the safer black men. You know, it's like, oh my God,
people.
Yeah, not for me, man. And so it's like, man, what made Will do that? Why would he do that? I can't believe Will Smith did that. You know, and so it's just really unfortunate that people can't be people. People have to be what we see them as all the time, and especially when you're dealing with race and culture. Like we're branded as such, and then when we do something that's not aligned with what society thinks that person should be doing, oh my God, watch him. Because you don't know, what if Barack Obama slapped somebody?
That
like you're like, oh, we don't know Barack how he is in the house. Like,
I feel like I can guess.
Yeah, then that'll be the second. Right, that'll be the second greatest night on television.
Exactly, exactly. That's what I'm saying. But we don't know. See what you just said, Emily. You're right. We can guess. What if Barack is not like that? What if Barack is wearing do-rags, smoking Newports? You know, just so happy to be out of
just
the.
Really, it's a clean public image.
Yeah, now he's like just cursing, playing ball, and like we don't know how he is. We just know what we saw.
Yeah.
What he had to be for what he felt was his contribution to culture was him being a Harvard lawyer, grad, very clean cut, articulate, whatever that means, you know. And so like, I just don't like that.
Yeah. Well, another thing, actually, Emily, you got any thoughts on what Courtney and I were saying?
Well, I mean, hopefully we can go back to what you were just going to say. What the piece that I guess I'm kind of mulling on and curious about is this, like Pedro, you mentioned, I'm going to paraphrase, so correct me, like something like as a black man, you feel like you're one mistake away from like I told you so or something like that. And how Will's race is getting pointed out here in this situation as a like, this is not good for the Black community. We're trying to like build, I don't know, social reputation or something like that. And so it kind of just leaves us as a culture and then also as an individual of like, with this, like, why are we looking to, if that was a white person, would be saying like, does that reflect all white people, you know? And that I can tell you, I've never done anything where people are like, oh, that you really just put white people to shame. Like even to say it like sounds funny because it's so far from anything that I've heard. And yet this is a narrative that's very active in this moment. And I'm just curious how that lands with both of you. I mean, as a extremely heavy weight, really.
Yeah. I know in high school, a teacher told me I was a credit to my race. And then I was like, what? And then he was like, he thought he was giving me a compliment. Yeah. And he was like, Pedro, I just want to tell you you're a credit to your race. And I was like, what do you mean by that? And he was like, you know, and I was like, no, I don't, tell me. And he's like, I mean, I said, so you're telling me my race is so garbage, they're lucky they have me? And he was like, no, why'd you take it that way? And I was like, that's what it sounds like you just said to me.
Yeah.
And then his feelings got hurt. He was like, you know, I'm not like that.
And then you had to take care of him after he insulted you.
Right. I mean, I was like, I don't know. I just know what you just said to me. So I'm just like, I mean, I haven't told you you're a credit to yours, you know, for being
you're a good teacher. You're a credit to white people.
Yeah, like I never said that to you. And then he was kind of like, he was hurt. But I mean, I didn't know what to say about it because that was the first time I ever heard anybody say it. So it was kind of like a weird thing. Yeah. And then, I mean, that's a lot to unpack. But what I was about to say before was like with humans, we hate being wrong. Like that's our thing. We're just like, I just want to be right. I don't even get it. I sometimes feel like I was like just dropped off by like another species, because some of the stuff that people put value on has never made sense to me.
Mhm.
So like the idea of being right all the time, it's like, where do you get it from? Like no one knows what that's like. But so when we look at Will Smith or even Chris Rock or whatever the case may be, I can imagine that a lot of people, even though they might not have done the work, they look inside, they're going like, I was wrong about him. And it's more about their own feelings of being wrong than it is anything else. Like they think it's about Will Smith, they think about Chris Rock, but it's not about them. It's really about what it tells us about us. And when we like what it tells us about us, then that helps us lean on what side of the thing, the issue that we fall on, in my perspective. And I think that's something, again, because I've listened to different commentaries on it, but not the reason why I was like, oh, we should talk about this is because if I heard somebody saying this, I would just be like, oh, I don't have nothing to say. But because people aren't talking about this, I was like, okay, we got to talk about this, because we aren't being reflective, and that's why we have gotten to the place that we've gotten to as a society.
Yes. Yeah. It's very true. That's if we can take each of these moments to look back at ourselves rather than let me take this moment, decide who's right and wrong. Like, where would we get?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I'm writing a poem about it right now, and it's the first lines are, I am Chris Rock, I am Will Smith, because I'm both of those dudes, And it's like, now somebody might steal it. I better finish it fast. But anyway,
get it.
but no, and because it's true,
right?
And in reflection, and I think that's something that many of us can witness, even if we're not Black. Like I think we can look at it and like pay attention to what's coming up inside of us and witness the biases and all the other things that we have, and then saying like, okay, this is what this is telling me about me.
A contribution to your race. You see, that aggravates the hell out of me. Like, I don't want to be so revered as to and I don't want to be like Black people and brown people or indigenous individuals are not a monolith, right. And so to put everybody in a category like, you did this, so you set all of us back, or you did this, so you advanced all of us. That's some bullshit, because at the end of the day, what with the cultural things that come up, what makes one person powerful enough to push that without the people? Does that make sense? Like when people say, "Oh my God, look what Barack did for the Black culture." What are you talking about? He every time he get paid, I'm not sure he cut checks with the Black culture. He taking it home and chilling with wife and kids. And so at the end of the day, we're people, and so to clump us up. And again, like, I think Barack, brilliant. Thank God I had the opportunity in my life to see a Black president, because he represents a possibility now. Like, you know what, damn, I could be president, and so that is cool. That is amazing. I hold myself, because to a regard where I want to represent what can happen with hard work, dedication, and resilience. And so to go that hard and see someone do that kind of work is inspiring. But I would never be as audacious to say, I did this and I pushed the culture forward just by my work, or I set us back by an action that I did. And so unless I'm doing it with the people, that's cultural setting. I just had an idea, I need the people to push it. Right. And so like when me and Emily started Humanize is bigger than us. We just had the idea. Actually, she had the idea, and so like, it's just amazing to feel like Will Smith did this to look how he set Black people back. He's not that powerful, man.
Right. Exactly.
Well, I mean, have you read an article that's talking about how Putin is white?
Yeah, that's a good one. What has he done? He's setting
back all white people.
Yeah,
and he's inflicting genocide, and we'll just slap someone.
Yeah,
that's why it was hard for me to get super excited. I'm like, yo, man, bro. We got a lot of going on,
Yeah.
and this is what's on the headlines. It's like, but Pedro, your perspective brought another angle to that, so I do appreciate what you said. But yeah, it was hard for me to care about this.
Yeah, Pedro, what you were saying in terms of like, what is this? What's being called forth by this? It reminds me of, so I have a tattoo on my back, and it's Jigten. It's the word for Jigten, which is the Tibetan word for world. And the interesting thing is that, as opposed to when we say world in English, most of us think of our external reality of like, this is my environment. This is what's around me. I have a chair underneath me in my house here.
Yeah.
The Tibetan word for world inherently has the sense of your world is internally created by all of your thoughts and your interpretations and your conditioning. And that's the world that you experience as the world. It's like a highly, highly subjective reality. And then within this, within the word world, I have a lotus, which in Tibetan Buddhism means our capacity to become awake to, lotus has a root in the mud, and then it's a very pure white flower. So it's like, maybe that is our world, our internal created reality. But from a spiritual sense, we have an opportunity to grow beyond that. But we have to take these moments, like you were saying, to have our, the roots in the mud and really be like, wow, like, look at all these lenses and conditionings, and turn back, into ourselves.
That's not dissimilar from the concept in Christian traditions I grew up in. We always talked about the world, and the world was, everything outside of the church, right? But it also got conflated with the flesh, and wrestling and battling with the flesh, like the desires and all those other things like that. And that harkens to a word that's sarx, which is the word for flesh in the New Testament. And it's more than just like your skin. It's a conceptual self that's conditioned by the trying to satisfy your concept of yourself, like to for lack of a better expression, because yourself and the concept of yourself are not the same thing. But we have a stronger attachment to the concept of ourselves.
Yes.
That's why I like, in the past when we've talked, I've said about people wanting to be good people,
right?
And in their mind, they're like, I want to be a good person. That's the concept of yourself. Or when we see something like the encounter with Will Smith and Chris Rock, then it's like the concept of oneself. So then the person who's witnessing it from the sarx or from the flesh or whatever, the world, they might look at it and go, okay, if I was in that situation, and then they project themselves into it, and then they look at their own self-concept and they say, okay, like, let's say they can relate to Chris Rock better. So they're like, okay, I'm a comedian. I'm just being here funny. I don't think this guy's going to come up and slap me. Then this guy slaps me. Now, how would I have handled that? And then they go through their concept of self. And then they might say, I wish I had martial arts skills, and they didn't know I had them. And then Chris Rock just did a backflip and landed on on Will Smith's neck. And that their self-concept will start, generating, chemicals in their brain, and they're just dealing. And then some people say, man, I wish you know what? Chris Rock handled it like a beast. He like ate that smack and it was nothing. And, I heard he said something like, I just got hit by by Muhammad Ali and I didn't get a scratch. They said that's what he said in the back. And because he's a little dude. So then it's like, if your self-concept is related to that, then you look at that and you go, yeah, that's how I would have done it. Or whatever. You just project yourself into it and then deal with your own self-concept. And then you hear people spitting back their own sarx, their own flesh, their own world, their own self-concept back out. So like if a person doesn't want to do work on themselves in the area of equality, then they look at it and go, whew, I'm off the hook. I almost fell for it. I almost was about to say all black people and everybody's equal, but Will Smith smacked Chris Rock. Now I can go back and chill and forget about all this. Thank you, Will Smith. So glad you did that. Now I
Yeah,
don't have to do any more work on
yeah,
myself.
Right.
And then their self-concept is like, I knew it. I was right.
I
And that's
knew
what
it.
everybody cares about.
yeah, yeah.
Being right.
Being right. And everybody's truth is their truth. I say this all the time. Like Hitler thought he was right.
Mm-hmm.
KKK members think they're right. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they think so. When you view someone, when you talk to someone, you always have to understand their perspective that everyone has their own truth. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't mean the consequences of their truths are right, but you should never negate the truth that someone else has. It's just like, what are we going to do with the consequences that incur because you believe what you believe now?
Hmm.
You know, and so like Will Smith, his truth was, and again, we're all is everything is speculative. It's conjecture. Everybody, okay, we feel as though he was defending his wife, or he had tired of people talking mess about him, or I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired. All right, cool. I'm gonna show you. And so we don't know what Will Smith's motives behind doing that, and why should we care? What is most important is something was happening with Will um, on a night that is so important, especially for other black actors and brown actors and indigenous actors that coming behind Will. That's more important in my mind than the slap, because now is he represents a possibility for other young aspiring black and brown actors, and so that is more in question. And for him to do it on a night of achievement like the Oscars, where black and brown people are not represented as well, that is more disappointing to me than the actual slap. And so I feel if then now he's withdrawing his name from the Academy, that's like, man, that's a lot. So that hurts me. And hopefully, like you said, Pedro, will come back stronger, and he will get what he needed, and 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 Chris Rock will see that words have consequences.
Yeah.
Words have feelings. You are a comedian, but you're also a black man. Like, come on.
But then that ends up putting him in the context, because like both Chris, like how they have movies that have like one black friend,
Yeah,
Chris
yeah,
and Will both are like the one black friend, or the magical Negro, or whatever the case may be, in different settings,
yeah.
and both of them to some degree make white people feel comfortable, you
Mm.
know. And I'm not saying that against anything about white people, but they feel more comfortable with somebody like Will Smith and Chris Rock.
Hmm.
So then when you see the two people that white people feel comfortable with having a clash, it's cataclysmic,
Mm.
to some degree from a psychological perspective, because the people don't know
Hmm.
what they do, because they're like, it shouldn't be this way, but they're basically gateway black people. I say this as
Hmm.
a gateway black person myself, that a lot
Mm.
of white people feel comfortable with me, um, and then it's like maybe I didn't know as much as I thought, blah blah, and then it's like
Yeah.
a opening for them to be more open to other black people, and they're more open. It shouldn't be that way, because it should be people to people. You
Right.
meet a person and treat them as that person, like how Martin Luther King said, judge it by not by our skin, but the content of our character. But people still judge books by their cover,
Right.
All
you
day,
know.
every day.
And so then that's something that we need to still work on as a society. And it's hard to get out of that dichotomy, because even when, like, on one hand, we can say, like, you and I can say, like, you know what, I don't want to be representative of all black people. I just want to be myself. And yeah, I represent a possibility. But then even in representing a possibility, it still harkens back to the whatever prevented that up to that point, whatever systems were in place that didn't make room for black, indigenous people of color, whatever. All of those things are harkened by the fact that we become a possibility.
Mm.
Like
Mhm.
Ketanji Brown Jackson, like when I was doing a workshop, and somebody said, well, how do you feel about her being nominated? Basically, doesn't that show that America is making progress? And I was like, well, my take on it is, I was like, wow, that's good for her. And now she's about to get it. And now my concern is more about all the stuff that's going to come at her after she got that nomination, and realizing that she's the first person that got this far because there were things in place to not let other people like her get through. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So she's the first one that squoze through. They're like, ee! And she popped out. You know what I mean? But it's like but is probably plenty of people way before her that would have been qualified, had potential, all this other stuff. And so there's this entanglement, for lack of a better word, that exists when we are trying to both live into the fullness of our own individual being, wanting to be seen as individuals, and whether we want to be or not, being representative of our cover.
Right. You know? Yeah. And then navigating the whiteness of, the comfort of white people within that. Right. And I think when you were talking about that, I had the image of Beyonce at the Super Bowl celebrating her African history, and all of the but wait, Beyonce's Black, what, right. And there's these funny, murky boundaries. It's the tension that's always there of is this a person? Is this what is speaking to me is your call, Pedro, to just reorient to what's coming up for me. What can I disentangle of my thoughts and my awareness and my impressions and my assumptions, my interpretations from this moment, rather than jump on the bandwagon. And it seems to me that the Unify Colorado Challenge is a great opportunity for that, for people to really put the rubber to the road of what does this look like in a moment to moment practice? Because it is not easy, and there's a reason that most of us are not doing it. Right. If we want to conserve our brain dollars, we don't do that. We go with our unconscious impulses. But unfortunately, when we do that as an entire society, we end up where our society is going, which is the lowest common denominator.
Yeah. And I just got back from a conference last week called the Healing Conversations Conference in Utah. And people from Northern Ireland were there, and a couple speakers, and they were warning us. They were like, look, you guys are not that far from where we were when we started blowing each other up and shooting each other. And you're going to have a lot more to forgive than the things that you said to each other. They're going to have to, right now, you have a chance. You can talk this through. But if you can't, basically muster up the will to have conversations with each other across differences and stuff, you're going to end up in the same situation that we were in. Yeah. And like I said, there's going to be much more to forgive. And so witnessing what happened with Will and Chris is that is indicative of that. Words, yes, they might have consequences, but words is actual evolution from the previous ways, because the original human communication was sex and violence. That's what we knew how to do: sex and violence, sex and violence. That's our natural, basic communicative processes. Yep. And then over time, we got different levels of comfort, and we started to be able to, take these grunts and turn them into sounds and symbols. And then we started to use them. And you could go from saying, hey, I'm just going it used to be you felt like killing somebody and you were killing them within seconds. That's just what it was. Then as we evolved, you were able to say, I feel like killing you. I'm not going to kill you, but I feel like killing you. And some of the danger of the way we're using language right now is that we will say, I heard, I understand the concept of silence is violence and words are violence and stuff like that. They are harking back to violence, but and there's a connection to them because they can be used to incite violence, or they can be used to not say anything and witness violence and not participate. But when they become overly conflated, then you get to see that reality, violence is violence. Yeah. And so there's the reality of a person saying a word and saying, if somebody told me, Pedro, I wish I killed you, I'd rather them tell me they wish that they were going to kill me or they want to kill me than to actually kill me. So if somebody say, I want to kill you, and if I died from them saying that, then I'd be like, yeah, don't say that. You know what I mean? So it's a part of an evolutionary trajectory, and we are still somewhat stuck in the old old stage of being, where sex and violence are entangled. That word, man, they messed it up forever. Entangled with our words or with our silence, which becomes compliance. But as we continue to move along that evolutionary trajectory, reflection ends up becoming very important. And as we increase our rate of reflection, we can then witness ourselves before we use our words and maybe avoid some of the stuff. But Chris, I had to give him props, because when he said, man, I could, like right after he got the slap, he's like, man, I think he went reflective and like so fast. And he was like, I could say a whole bunch of actually harmful jokes. I'm not going to say those harmful jokes. And then he reflected even further and was like, wow, that was the greatest night in history of television. Because he knew reflectively, in the world, in the context we live in, Will just started something that's going to be rolling and rolling and rolling, and we're going to be talking about it. And he was reflective enough. So he actually, to some degree, represents evolutionary place that we're going, to be able to be as reflective, to say, you know what, I want to say this, but I shouldn't say
hold
it.
back.
Yeah, he definitely, because I mean, Chris Rock is brilliant, and so he said he knew, just like Humanize is a conversation starter, hopefully a thought provoker. That slap is a conversation starter, and it was a thought provoker, because we're talking about it right now, and so I am glad that in that moment it just wasn't two black men brawling on the stage. I'm glad about that. And like I said, it's not for me to blame Will or Chris. It's for me to understand, or try to investigate more. Why is it that is important? Does that make sense? Like, why do we care so much about that? That's the question. In my mind, is the issue. Like, are we, see, that's the brilliance. We always come back to this. The brilliance of white supremacy is distractors, gaslighting. Like, it works on a dime. It's like quickly it can take you from talking about, like, just say, George Floyd. Then we're talking about something over here. Then we're talking about Breonna Taylor. But hold up, enough of Breonna Taylor. Let's talk about how many people are dying because of COVID. But hold on, let's talk. Like, it can switch so that you don't really get to understand the underlying issues, because if we understand the underlying issues, we'll start to uproot the systems of oppression. Like, so that's why the system is so good, because you don't have time to sit back, think, and like, okay, cool. Education is a system that has been oppressive. What can I do? Oh, dang, I got to go over here. Mass incarceration. Oh, dang, look at this slap from Will Smith. I don't have time to sit in it and think. And that's why, like, COVID covered so much, because we literally had time to sit and think on your sofa as you watched. You didn't know where the world was going, and so so yeah, that's what I will come up about from our conversation. Like, for me, Pedro, you changed the perspective from I really don't care about that to I should care about that, because just as a conversation starter that humanizes, that slap also started something, and so I appreciate you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
I told you I had a dream. I was in the car with Chris Rock last night, and I was like, man, do you realize that this thing has now changed the world? Like, you changed the world. Like, I was like, thanks for taking that slap, man. And he's like, I'm gonna still joke about it. And then I woke up and I was like, oh yeah, I guess I know I'm talking to you also. Then my brain started kind of coming up with something. But in those Marvel movies where Thanos did the snap and it like changed everything. It's like he did the slap and it changed everything. It's like, because it's a conversation starter. If our culture didn't have the tension that it has from race and all the stuff that we haven't healed, this wouldn't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And another thing that we don't think about is the container, because
Yeah.
like if Will Smith smacked Chris Rock somewhere else or smacked anybody somewhere, he already
Mhm.
smacked the dude before in the line, who kissed him on the cheek or something. He's like, but he if you take that container and you
Yeah.
go like who did he smack, when did he smack them, where did he smack them, and why did he smack them? You
Mhm.
know, whoever the person was, it changes the whole narrative.
Dynamics.
You
Yes.
know, so
Mhm.
it's not the smack itself. This because
Mhm.
like I said, like that's like you say, what's the worst thing you ever did in your life? Oh, I smacked the guy. And if you just say I smacked the guy, that was the worst thing I ever did in my life, they'll be like, that's
Hmm.
pretty light. You didn't really do
Yeah.
much in life. Because
Yeah.
we know a lot of people out there that did a lot of other things and worse things,
Yeah.
and they're living their life.
Yeah.
So that it's not about that. It's about all of the things that are holding it and the culture that is holding it.
Mhm.
That's engaged, that's like gonna keep pulling at us as it unfolds. And there's a
Mhm.
lot of potential to do a lot of great things from it. And there's a lot of potential that could be lost by not reflecting on it in a
Yeah.
way that makes us view ourselves more clearly.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing this really important perspective on this. I think it's really a really important call to consciousness that we can ignore, or we can take the invitation. And I think that
Yeah.
the invitation is really compelling. So
thanks for participating in this with me. Invitation was like when I started being a pastor, that was my word that I built my whole ministry on, was the word invitation.
Yeah.
So thanks for bringing that word up.
Yeah.
Too.
Of course. Of course.
For sure.
Thank
Awesome.
you,
Yeah.
Thank you
All
so much.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, have an amazing day, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Take care.
Appreciate y'all. Peace.
Yeah.
Bye.